In my former life on the street, we had a code. If you had a problem with the guy, you handled that guy. You didn't go after his wife, you didn't go after his kids, and you certainly didn't hurt the guy who swept the floors in his building. If you were reckless, if you caused what they call collateral damage, you didn't get a pass. You paid the price. But in the world I'm about to show you, those rules don't apply. I'm going to tell you a story about a man who didn't just shut down a business. He looked at 85,000 families, secretaries, janitors, mailroom clerks, people living paycheck to paycheck, and he decided they didn't matter. He ruined their futures just to put a notch on his belt. His tactics were so dirty, so underhanded, that when the Supreme Court looked at the case, all 9 of them, the most powerful judges in the world, they all looked at what this man did and they said, "You went too far." They threw his case out in the trash. Now let me ask you this. If I did something reckless on the street and brought that kind of heat for no reason, what do you think would happen to me? Well, I'll tell you what happened to this man. He gets a promotion. They call him a legendary prosecutor. I call him a hitman with a law degree. And the scariest part isn't what he did in the past. It's that he's out there right now teaching the next generation of lawyers that winning is more important than the truth. He may not be a household name, but he wrote the Playbook on how to weaponize the justice system against American citizens. And you probably don't even know who he is. Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good, very blessed on this end. And as always, my friends, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to our God for that, especially around this Christmas season. You know, people, I have had a mistrust of government basically my whole life. And obviously I have reason for that. I grew up under a legendary mob figure, my father, Sonny Franzese, the underboss of the Colombo family at one point in time. I've witnessed, to what levels the government will go to get somebody that they really want. They will cross the line. They will do things that they shouldn't be doing. They will break the law when they need to. I've witnessed that. I believe my father was framed on a case, given a 50-year prison sentence. I know that for a fact, and I'm not going to get into all of that now, but I saw my family destroyed as a result of it. And I've always said, listen, the government does their job honestly and obeys the laws like they're supposed to. They're not supposed to break the law to get the lawbreaker. They have many tools and weapons, and they got all the money in the world to get people the right way. And when they cross that line and cause, the damage that they cause, not only to the perpetrator, the alleged perpetrator, but to the family, it's just wrong. And I've witnessed some terrible things throughout my life, and I still have a mistrust of government, and for a good reason. We can go into a lot of things. The JFK cover-up, the Epstein cover-up, all these things, we know of. But I want to talk about something that's so disgusting, so despicable, that happened to a good friend of mine. His name is Michael Sessa. He's doing over 30 years. He's doing it because of just a terrible, terrible prosecutor, corrupt prosecutor, a corrupt FBI at that time, and we're going back to the 90s, and a corrupt Eastern District of New York prosecutor's office. Just corrupt. And I'm not saying this because I feel that way. I'm saying this because the facts support it. And I want to talk about one in particular. His name is Andrew Weissmann. This guy, I have to say it, people, he's the scum of the earth. He absolutely is. He destroys family. As a prosecutor, he suborns perjury. He'll do anything necessary, and he's even said that. He'll do anything necessary to put a notch in his belt and to go after people, whether they're guilty or not, doesn't matter to him. He's out there to destroy, to build his own career. He was so bad that the Mueller investigation, they even hired him to go after Trump. And if they're engaging somebody to go after Trump, that he's got to be unscrupulous, without a doubt, especially through those 4 years. Bad guy. But don't base it on what he's done to Trump alone. That's not what this is about. This is about him. Just a bad, bad person. These people need to be held accountable. They must be held accountable for their actions, because if we allow government officials to break the law, to go after the people that they think are lawbreakers, then we're in trouble. We have anarchy. That's true anarchy. That's not a democracy anymore. That's not a democratic republic anymore. Not at all. And this guy has violated the rules throughout his career. And every time he does it, he gets a promotion, or it gets better for him. And in the meantime, he destroys lives of innocent people. My friend Michael Sessa is one of them. What they did to him was tragic. Now, I want you to watch this. This is a 2-part series. I'm going to go through something today specifically on Andrew Weissmann, and then I'm going to bring an attorney on that's really going to shed light on all of this, and you're going to be shocked. You're going to be shocked, and you're going to be as outraged as I am. And, I have nothing more to say about that other than to bring this to light. You know, to understand the playbook, you have to go back to 2002. The country was in a panic. The Enron scandal had just broke. Billions of dollars had vanished. People lost their life savings. It was a disaster. The public was angry. They wanted someone to blame, and the Department of Justice needed someone who was willing to get his hands dirty to give it to them. So they appoint a man named Andrew Weissmann to run the Enron task force, and he zeroed in on a target, Arthur Andersen. Now, for the young people watching who don't remember, Arthur Andersen wasn't just some shady back alley operation. This was the gold standard of accounting. They had been in business for 89 years. They had 85,000 employees worldwide. You know, Weissmann had a theory. He claimed that because some employees at the firm shredded documents related to Enron, that the whole firm was guilty of obstruction of justice. Now, in the mob, if a soldier steps out of line, you punish the soldier. You don't take out the whole family or the whole neighborhood. But Weissmann, he decided to indict the entire company. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew that an accounting firm is built on trust. He knew that the second he announced that indictment, the trust was gone. It's what lawyers call a corporate death sentence. He didn't need a trial. He didn't need a jury to say guilty. He just needed to push that indictment through. And just like that, it was over. Clients fled. Banks pulled their funding. 85,000 people. I want you to really think about that number. That's a stadium full of people. Secretaries, IT guys, janitors, people who didn't even know what Enron was. They lost their jobs. They lost their pensions. They lost their medical insurance. Weissmann got his win. He stood over the body of Arthur Andersen and took a victory lap. But here's what the twist is that really makes your blood boil. 3 years later, the Supreme Court took a look at the case, and they didn't just disagree with Weissmann. They embarrassed him. It was a 9-0 decision, unanimous. They said his instructions to the jury were so flawed, so twisted, that it wasn't even a fair trial. They said he didn't even prove that the company knew what they were doing was wrong. The conviction was overturned, but you can't overturn an execution. Arthur Andersen was already dead. Jobs were gone, lives were ruined. In my world, if you make a mistake that costs the family millions of dollars and brings heat on the boss, you don't come home. But in the Department of Justice, Andrew Weissmann didn't get fired, he got promoted. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, Mike, maybe he just made a mistake. Maybe he got a little too excited with Arthur Andersen. You can't judge a guy's whole career on one mistake, right? People, let me tell you something. In the life, if a guy messes up once, it's a mistake. If he messes up twice, it's a pattern. And Andrew Weissmann, he has a pattern. A couple of years after destroying Andersen, Weissmann went after 4 executives from Merrill Lynch. The case was about some barges off the coast of Nigeria. It was a complicated business deal with Enron. Now, usually if a business deal goes bad, you sue each other. It's a civil court. But Weissmann, he treated it like a mob conspiracy. He charged these 4 men with fraud and conspiracy. He threw the book at them. These guys went to prison. They were taken away from their families. Their reputations were destroyed. Weissmann chalked up another win. But watch what happens next. A year later, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals took a look at the case, and guess what? They overturned the convictions. They said Weissmann had stretched the law, something he does all the time, beyond what it was meant to do. Basically, he took a normal business transaction and he twisted it until it looked like a crime. He didn't find a crime, he invented one. But inventing crimes isn't even the worst part. The worst part is how he wins. Defense lawyers have been screaming for years that this guy plays dirty with something called Brady material. Now let me break it down for you. Imagine we're playing poker, but I'm the dealer, and I'm the only one allowed to see the deck. In a court of law, if the government finds evidence that proves you are innocent, let's say a witness who says you didn't do it, or a document that clears your name, they are legally required to give that to you. That's called Brady material. I'm very familiar with that with my dad's case. We screamed about it all the time. But that's the rules. But the accusation against Weissmann is that when he finds that card, the one proves that you're innocent, he doesn't show it to you. He sticks it up his sleeve. He hides the evidence that could save your life. He's playing a game where he can see all the cards and you're playing blind. And that's exactly what he did to my friend Michael Sessa. We're going to get into that, and I want you to stick around tomorrow to listen to the travesty that this Andrew Weissmann played on a fellow by the name of Michael Sessa, 33 years in prison. Shouldn't be there. And it's not just hiding evidence, it's threatening witnesses. You testify against your boss or I'm going to indict your wife. You sing for me or you'll never see the kids grow up. I know these tactics. I had them used against me, but I was a racketeer. I was the bad guy. This guy is supposed to be representing the United States of America. So you have a prosecutor who destroys companies illegally, who stretches the law until it snaps, who has a reputation for hiding evidence. In any other job in the world, this guy gets fired. He gets canned immediately. But in Washington, D.C., they looked at this record and they decided he was the perfect man to investigate the President of the United States. Fast forward now to 2017. Donald Trump is in the White House. The political establishment is in a panic. They couldn't accept that an outsider had won the presidency. They couldn't accept that the American people had rejected their system, so the left decided to declare war on his presidency. They threw everything they had in their arsenal at him. You gotta admit it. You saw the phony impeachments, you saw the nonstop leaks, you saw the media smears. But the biggest weapon they had was the Russia collusion nonsense, and we have seen evidence come out now, and it's being investigated now, that it was all nonsense. They wanted to convince the world that the President of the United States was a traitor. They didn't care whether it was true or not. Now we know today that it was all a hoax. We know the evidence was manufactured. We know it was paid for by his political opponents. It was a political hit job disguised as intelligence. But to sell a lie that big, you can't just use a regular prosecutor. You need a guy who knows how to destroy a target even when there is no crime. So who does Robert Mueller hire to run the show? He hires the pit bull himself, Andrew Weissmann. Now, to this point, Andrew Weissmann has never been accountable for all the lives he destroyed. Not one bit. He gets promoted. So now hold on a second. This is a guy who was at Hillary Clinton's election night party in 2016. This is a guy who sent emails praising the acting attorney general for defying Trump. He wasn't a neutral investigator. He was a political operative with a badge, and he brought his death penalty playbook with him. He treated the justice system like a shakedown. It wasn't enough to go after Trump. They went after his family. They went after his business. They went after his home. He sent SWAT teams to raid the houses of people who weren't even dangerous. Why? To scare them, to break them. He used process crimes as a weapon. He'd find a small technicality, a lie about a meeting, a forgotten email, and used it to threaten them with decades in jail. Look what they did to General Michael Flynn, a 3-star general, a war hero. They ambushed him in the White House, told him he didn't need a lawyer, and they walked him into a perjury trap. But that wasn't enough. They threatened to indict his son if he didn't plead guilty. What was he supposed to do? They bankrupted him. He had to sell his family home just to pay his legal bills. That's not prosecution, that's destruction. Look at Paul Manafort, a friend of mine. They threw him in solitary confinement, never arrested in his life. That's where you put violent criminals or a mob boss who orders hits. Why did they do that to a political consultant in a suit? To break him, to torture him psychologically until he gave them something on Trump. And look at Roger Stone. They sent 29 FBI agents, SWAT teams, frogmen, helicopters to raise the home of a 67-year-old man. They tipped off CNN so the cameras would be rolling. They dragged his wife out into the street in her nightgown. For what? For a process crime? No, it was theater. It was designed to terrorize anyone who dared to support the president. You know, the left talks about, Hitler tactics. They use them. They brought their pit bull in to do all of this. Everything they're blaming Trump for is what they did to Trump and others surrounding Trump. And his history, Weissmann, goes way back. He did it in the mob. He did it with Enron, and he's doing it now. He did it now, I should say, to the President of the United States. And let's talk about destroying evidence. When the Department of Justice Inspector General came looking for the text messages of the Mueller team, guess what happened? Records show that the members of the team accidentally wiped their phones. You believe in that? I got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. They claim they entered the wrong passwords too many times. What are they, retarded? All of a sudden, that's the excuse? We let them get away with that? They claimed it was a glitch. Listen, people, where I come from, if you wipe a phone before the feds can see it, that's called obstruction of justice. We go to prison for that, but when Andrew Weissmann's team does it, it's just an accident. He spent 2 years and $32 million of your taxpayer money trying to pin this Russia nonsense on the President of the United States, and what did he find? Nothing. No conspiracy with Russia, no obstruction charges, despite having the full force of the FBI, despite wiretaps, despite dragging the president's family through the mud for a guy who is famous for inventing crimes. Even he couldn't manufacture this one. But here's the part that really blows my mind. After failing to take down Trump, he writes a book. He says, "We made mistakes. We pulled our punches. We didn't do enough." Are you kidding me? You raided homes. You destroyed reputations. You paralyzed the country with a hoax for 2 years. And your excuse is, "We made mistakes"? In my life, if you take a shot at the king, you better not miss. Weissmann missed. But unlike on the street, he gets to walk away clean. Let's look at the scorecard. Weissmann destroyed Arthur Andersen illegally. He had the Nigerian barge convictions overturned. He spent 2 years and $32 million on the Mueller probe and came up empty. Now, in the real world, if you were a doctor and you lost every patient or a pilot who crashed a plane, you wouldn't just be fired, you'd lose your license. You'd be done. But Andrew Weissmann, he didn't get fired, he got a golden parachute. He walked out of the DOJ and straight into a contract with MSNBC. Of course. He became a professor at NYU. Think about the message that sends. This man is teaching law students. He's on the national TV every night, lecturing you about justice. He's acting like the moral authority of the country. But here's the thing about arrogance. It makes you blind. You start to think you're untouchable. Everything they talk about on the left, nobody is above the law. They promote a guy who always believed he was above the law, who subverted the law, who did everything illegal to put a notch in his belt, and he gets praised and he gets promoted for it. You start to think the rules really don't apply to you, and that is when you make a mistake. Andrew Weissmann went on Twitter and accused a former Trump White House lawyer, Stephen Passantino, of coaching a witness to lie. He didn't have proof. He just threw it out there to sell his book. But this time he wasn't protected by his DOJ badge. He was just a private citizen running his mouth. Passantino sued him for defamation. Weissmann tried to get the case thrown out. He used every trick he had. But a federal judge said no. The judge ruled the case moves forward to discovery. If you've never been through a federal lawsuit, let me tell you, discovery is a nightmare. It means Andrew Weissmann has to sit in that chair, raise his right hand, and answer questions under oath. He has to turn over his emails. He has to explain his sources. He can't hide behind classified information anymore. For 20 years, he was the hunter, but now he's about to find out exactly what it feels like to be the prey. You know, throughout my life, I've learned one difficult and painful truth. The bill always comes due. You can run for a year, you can run for 10 years. I did some bad things. I evaded justice for over a decade, but sooner or later, I had to answer for my actions. Andrew Weissmann spent his whole career destroying people. He destroyed the life of my friend. He subverted perjury. He's absolutely corrupt. Information that should have been presented at the trial, Brady material, that would have ended in my friend going free. He hid it. He subverted the truth. He suborned perjury, along with the FBI. And that's why I want you to pay attention. This is going to get more involved when you hear from the attorney. What he has to say is going to make your hair stand on edge. He spent his whole career destroying people, this Andrew Weissmann. He treated the justice system like it was his personal weapon. He thought he was the hero. He thought he was untouchable, but now he's facing a federal lawsuit. He's going to be deposed. He's going to be cross-examined, and for the first time, he won't be the one asking the questions. He's going to learn that when you strip away the badge and the title and the TV contracts, you're just a man. And if you broke the rules, you're going to pay the price. This story isn't just about Andrew Weissmann. It's about a system that allows guys like him to exist, a system that rewards the hunters and forgets the victims. Arthur Andersen is gone, and for those thousands of innocent families, the damage is permanent. You can find a new job, but you can't replace a pension that took 30 years to build. These people lost their security. They had to walk into interviews with a stain on their resume that they didn't cause. Those families were robbed of their future. We can't fix the past, but we can stop pretending that this is justice. They call him a legendary prosecutor. I call him a cautionary tale because in America, nobody should be above the law. Not the president, not a mob boss, and certainly not the man who thinks that he's the law. But the real danger here, it isn't just Andrew Weissmann. The danger is the message his career sends to the rest of us. Because when you see a prosecutor destroy 85,000 lives and get a promotion, when you see a man hide evidence and a man is doing 33 years in prison because he subverted evidence and he suborned perjury, you see him get a TV contract, it breaks something in this country. It tells the American people that the game is rigged. There's one set of rules for the political elite, and there's another set of rules for the families that they destroy. And once people believe the game is rigged, they stop playing by the rules. They stop trusting the institutions. That's what's happening in our government right now. We see it all over the place. These people need to be held accountable. When we talk about Trump going on a revenge tour, it has nothing to do with revenge. It's accountability. When people use false information, people in leadership, people that were swore to take an oath, to abide by the rules and work for the benefit of the American people, when they look to put a notch in their belt and they do it for their own personal gratification and they destroy people's lives like they did with my friend Michael Sessa and so many others. We talked at 85,000 people that lost their jobs, destroyed innocent people because of this guy. He's the scum of the earth. They stopped trusting the media. They stopped trusting each other. I spent 20 years in a world where winning was the only thing that mattered at times. It didn't matter who you hurt for some people. It didn't matter for some people whose businesses you ruined or whose family you might have destroyed. As long as the boss was happy and looking at Washington today, looking at the tactics of men like Andrew Weissmann, I have to ask myself, what's the difference between the guys I used to run with and the guys running the Department of Justice? It's why I wrote the book, Mafia Democracy. The mafia is in Washington, D.C. The mafia is in these prosecutorial offices throughout the country when they have a corrupt guy like Andrew Weissmann who's there to destroy lives. At least on the street, we had the decency to admit what we were. We didn't pretend to be saints. But these guys, they put on an expensive suit, they go on primetime television, they sit there and lecture you about right and wrong, like they're the guardians of the law. But don't let the suit fool you. A wolf is still a wolf, even when he's wearing a badge. People, look, this guy needs to be held accountable. My friend needs to be released from prison. When you hear what the attorney has to say, and you're going to hear that tomorrow, when you hear what he has to say, how this Weissmann suborned perjury, how he hid information, exculpatory information, the Brady rule, how he worked with a corrupt FBI agent who was charged with murder, complicit with Greg Scarpa. You know that name, okay? When you hear how the prosecutorial office in the Eastern District of New York, how they hid all of this and even more. I'm telling you, the damage that they did, not only to my friend, but so many people, it's going to make your hair stand on edge. I've said that a few times, but it did that to me. I couldn't believe it. The cover-up, the length that they'll go to put a notch in their belt, put people in jail that were innocent, destroy lives. Look, you know, I get passionate about this because my family was impacted by it. And I know you're going to say, oh, come on, Michael, your dad was this. Look, no disagreement there, but I stand by this. The government is not allowed to break the law to go after the lawbreakers. Think about it. When that happens, they can allege anybody that they don't like is a criminal or engaged in criminal activity, and they can break the law, suborn perjury, be corrupt, do what they need to do, destroy families, threaten witnesses, anything they need to do to win. When that happens, we're all in trouble, people. We're all in trouble. So I want you to stay tuned for tomorrow and listen to what this lawyer, David Schoen, I'm going to mention his name, has to say. This Andrew Weissmann is the scum of the earth. He destroyed a very dear friend of mine's life and family up to this point. And it's time this guy is able to come home. And we're going to talk about it now. It was such an injustice. More so, or as much or more so than with my dad. You know, look, I went to jail for a crime I committed. I did my time. I paid my fine. But this man shouldn't be in prison. We need to talk about it and we need to pursue it. And I'm doing everything in my power to try to get him home. This was the scum, Andrew Weissmann, the scum of the earth, who tried to take down the President of the United States. The President of the United States. They did everything to Donald Trump. That whole Russia collusion was nothing but a myth. A myth. and they put Andrew Weissmann, scum of the earth, to do a hatchet job on the president, and the information was so bad they couldn't even do it. Andrew Weissmann, the worst of the worst, couldn't even do it. That's how bad the case was against Donald Trump. And all of these cases that they put against him, you know, like Donald Trump or not, I don't care. You can call me whatever. Okay, but I look at things the way they are. I don't know Donald Trump. I got nothing to do with him. I look at things the way they are. And man, this was the biggest farce in the history of the presidency as far as I'm concerned, what they did to him. That's it for today. How do I always leave you, my friends? Same way. And I'm sorry for getting so passionate. But you know, I just cannot tolerate this. That these people are not held accountable for destroying lives. They just don't care. And then they get promoted for it. It's despicable conduct. This Andrew Weissmann, he should be in jail. He should be in prison for the lives that he destroyed for the rest of his life. Because you can't make up for those lives. You can't make up for the time that he caused, you know, to take away from people and their loved ones. You just can't make up for it. He's the scum of the earth. Be safe. Please, watch out for guys like this. Be healthy, my friends, especially through this Christmas season. And yes, God bless each and every one of you. God bless your friends, your neighbors, your loved ones. God bless your family. And God bless America, because America needs help. We need help from guys like this, from corrupt leaders like this that want to lead this country astray in the wrong direction. A beautiful country like America that was built on biblical principles. Deny it all you want. It's the truth. Do your homework. Do your history. This country, America, was formed on biblical principles. God-given principles. And yes, my friends, I will see you next time. Stay tuned. Merry Christmas. Love all you guys. Bye-bye.